I found something unexpected in my husband's car, a tampon. This discovery left me feeling confused and worried. I'm a 29-year-old woman, and I've been married to my 30-year-old husband for 7 years, with 2 kids. Until now, I had no reason to doubt our relationship. He often jokes that we're still in the honeymoon phase, even years into our marriage. One day, while putting our daughter in her car seat, I noticed something wedged between the cushions. At first, I thought it was a toy or snack wrapper. But when I pulled it out, I was shocked to see it was a tampon. Since I have an IUD that has stopped my periods for over a year, I didn't recognize the brand. I brought it to my husband's attention later that evening, holding it like it was evidence of a mystery I needed to solve. At first, he seemed confused and didn't understand why I was upset. He shrugged it off, saying it probably belonged to his coworker, Fiona, who he'd been out to lunch with recently. His casual dismissal made me feel even more unsettled. Despite our friendship with Fiona and her husband, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I convinced myself the tampon could have slipped out of her purse during one of their outings, but the more I thought about it, the more uneasy I became. A couple of weeks later, I found another tampon, this time in my sock drawer. The thought of my husband having an affair made me feel physically ill. I didn't want to confront him yet, as I felt too embarrassed to bring it up again. I shared my concerns with my sister, who helped me compare the tampons I had found. They matched, adding to my worry. Instead of confronting my husband directly, my sister suggested we invite Fiona and her husband over for a casual gathering. However, they were unavailable, so we decided to observe the situation further. As the weeks passed, I looked for any changes in my husband's behavior, but there were none. I tried to put the incident out of my mind. Then, when my younger daughter fell ill, my husband stayed home to take care of her while I continued working. I appreciated his willingness to step up, but when I came home one day, I noticed my daughter was dressed in clothes I didn't recognize. This further heightened my anxiety. I knew I needed to get to the bottom of the situation and understand what was happening. I had long sworn off full-length sleep suits with snaps across the front, especially for my youngest daughter. The snaps were just a hassle for quick diaper changes, and I made it clear to my husband that I wouldn't dress her in those. He usually doesn't handle shopping for the girls' clothes or accessories, so I was bewildered when I found my daughter dressed in one. After finding the unexpected outfit, I went straight to my husband and asked if anyone had come by to visit. He seemed confused and assured me that it had just been him and the kids at home all day. I pressed him again, but he denied anyone visiting, telling me to calm down. I wanted to confront him more directly, but our older daughter was in the room, sensing the tension. As I processed everything, I realized I was becoming consumed by worry. It was affecting my sleep, my eating, and my ability to care for my children. I decided to set up hidden cameras to get some answers. I arranged for them to be delivered to my sister's house, with her husband helping to install them. Last week, I got the confirmation I'd been waiting for. The day began like any other, with my husband and I rushing to get our daughters ready for school. There was a sense of teamwork in the chaos. After dropping the girls off, we went about our workdays, counting down the hours until we could see them again. But then, I received a notification on my phone. Motion at the front door. I clicked on the video clip, expecting to see a delivery person, but what I saw left me stunned. A young woman was leading my daughter into the house, hand in hand with my husband, and our other daughter followed behind them. My heart raced as I tried to process what I was witnessing. The girls were supposed to be at daycare, and my husband was at work. The woman, as far as I knew, lived 2 states away. Panic set in as I tried to make sense of the situation. Was this a misunderstanding, or was something more troubling happening? I stared in disbelief, feeling a knot form in my stomach. The footage showed a woman I hadn't seen in years leading my youngest daughter into our home. My initial reaction was disbelief, hoping for an innocent explanation. But as reality sank in, anger surged through me. I needed answers immediately, so I called my husband, but he didn't answer. I texted him, demanding to know what was going on. When he finally picked up after several attempts, he revealed that the woman was his sister, who I hadn't heard from in years. It turned out she had been the source of the unusual items I found earlier. She had a troubled history, including past issues with substance abuse, and her unexpected presence in our home left me feeling unsettled. This wasn't just about misplaced items, it was about trust and boundaries. The realization of her presence in our lives under such circumstances was overwhelming, and I knew I needed to confront the situation head-on. The irony of her attempts at reconciliation through deceit and intrusion was not lost on me. My husband didn't want me to know. Or worse, he tried to keep his family away from our children. They had been meeting in secret, often at our house when I was at work. They would enter through the garage in my husband's car, avoiding detection from the Ring camera at the front door. The level of planning and secrecy involved made my skin crawl. She even spent the night on a weekend when I had been on a business trip and slept in our bed. The thought of her in our home and our bed made me feel violated. She babysat our girls on a night my husband told me he had dropped them off at his parents' house. The casual way he lied to me and the ease with which he kept the secret made me question everything I thought I knew about him. She bought the girls clothes and dressed my youngest in the onesie and bow that my husband had promised I would dress her in myself. The image of my daughter in that unfamiliar outfit, with a tiny clip in her hair, now felt like a haunting reminder of the betrayal unfolding right under my nose. Yet, when I turned to my husband for reassurance, all I found was disbelief and denial. He brushed off my concerns, insisting that it was all in my head and that I was overreacting to a series of harmless coincidences. My husband swore this was all in my imagination: the tampons, the onesie, the bow, and everything else. He seemed perfectly content to watch me agonize for weeks over a woman he insisted didn't exist, shrugging off each unsettling discovery as if it were news to him. He even insinuated that I was experiencing postpartum depression 2 years after giving birth. I had confided in him before about my fears of PPD, like my mother had suffered with me, and the guilt it brought. As the weeks turned into months, and the truth remained stubbornly elusive, my patience wore thin, replaced by a simmering rage. How could he dismiss my fears so callously? How could he stand by as our family teetered on the brink of collapse? He told me I wasn't sleeping enough and that I missed the girls too much, urging me to take a step back and reevaluate my mental health. I gave him the benefit of the doubt because he was my husband and no other version of events made sense. After a month of this emotional turmoil, I had nothing to show for my trust but this disheartening situation and a lot of anger. When confronted, my husband failed to explain himself, stumbling over his words and offering half-hearted excuses that made no sense. He claimed he was trying to protect me from unnecessary stress about his sister wanting to make amends, but his words felt disjointed and unconvincing. His evasiveness confirmed my worst fears. The man I had trusted and built a life with was now a stranger, hiding behind a facade of lies. I watched as he avoided eye contact, his shoulders slumped in defeat. The weight of his betrayal hung heavily in the air, a palpable presence neither of us could ignore. There was no reasonable explanation for his actions or the deceit that tainted our marriage. I knew then that I couldn't stay with someone who had so blatantly betrayed my trust and jeopardized our children's safety. The thought of my daughters being exposed to such toxic secrecy and manipulation was unbearable. I had to prioritize their well-being, which meant making the hardest decision of my life. With a heavy heart, I told him it was over. The shock and desperation on his face were almost pitiable, but it couldn't erase the damage done. I walked away, determined to protect my children from any further harm. I decided to end the relationship and file for divorce. This decision was both heartbreaking and empowering. Acknowledging that our 7-year journey together had come to such a bitter end was devastating, but it was also liberating to take control of my life and prioritize my well-being and that of my children. The divorce process was long and grueling. Each step felt like a new battle in an endless war. There were countless court sessions, each more draining than the last, where I had to relive the pain and betrayal. My husband fought me every step of the way, refusing to accept responsibility for his actions and attempting to paint himself as the victim. His determination to contest every detail made the process even more exhausting. In court, I detailed the discovery of the tampons, the hidden meetings with my sister-in-law, and the lies my husband had told. I presented the ring footage that captured her entering our home with my children and provided testimonies from my sister and brother-in-law to support my claims. However, the court required concrete evidence of her past and present behavior, which was not easy to obtain. Despite these challenges, I remained focused on the bigger picture, emphasizing my husband's deceit and breach of trust. After months of legal battles, the court ruled in my favor. I was granted primary custody of our daughters, with my husband receiving supervised visitation rights. The judge acknowledged the need for a stable environment for the children, considering the deceit and potential risks involved. Looking back, this ordeal taught me valuable lessons that I hope others can learn from. Trust is the foundation of any relationship, and once it's broken, it's incredibly difficult to rebuild. Always listen to your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. Communication is key. Address issues head-on rather than letting them fester. Most importantly, never settle for less than you deserve. My children and I deserve a life free from deception and betrayal, and I am committed to building that future for us. In your opinion, what do you think about the story? Please leave your comment below to let me know.